I've always considered myself a light sleeper. Not the kind of person who wakes up at every creak of the floorboards, but the type who notices things that don't belong. The night sounds of the city sirens, distant car horns, the occasional dog barking never bothered me. But that all changed the night I moved into my apartment on Cedar Street. It was a small, one-bedroom unit on the third floor of an aging building. The walls were thin, and the floors creaked with every step. I'd visited the place during the day, and it seemed cozy enough. Hardwood floors, a tiny balcony with a view of the street below, and a kitchen that wasn't too outdated. The rent was cheap, and I deconvinced myself that a little noise was a fair trade-off for living alone in the heart of the city. The first week was uneventful. I unpacked boxes, arranged my things, and settled into a routine. But then, it started. At first, I thought it was just the building settling. A soft, rhythmic tapping on the floor above me. Footsteps, really. Slow at first, then pacing back and forth, back and forth. I lived on the third floor. The apartment above mine was empty. I knew this because the landlord had explicitly told me it hadn't been rented for months. That detail didn't stop me from blaming the noises on some late-night maintenance crew or even an animal trapped in the ceiling. But then, the footsteps got louder. I'd be lying in bed, scrolling through my phone, and suddenly the sound of shoes scraping across hardwood would start directly above my bedroom. It wasn't erratic. It was deliberate. Pacing. I asked the landlord again when I saw him one evening. "Are you sure no one's upstairs?" I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "Positive," he said, adjusting his cap. "Apartment's been empty for over 6 months. No work scheduled up there. You're probably just hearing your neighbors below, or the building settling. Old buildings creak." I nodded, but the explanation didn't sit right with me. The next night, I lay in bed, listening. I could hear the footsteps start at the far corner of the apartment, moving slowly, almost methodically, toward my bedroom. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was the sound of the wind against the window, or maybe a rat in the walls. But the more I listened, the more precise it sounded. Someone walking deliberately above my head. By the end of the second week, I was losing sleep. I started keeping a notebook by my bed, writing down every instance, the time, the pattern, the direction. Footsteps would start around 11:30 p.m., pace back and forth for about 15 minutes, then stop abruptly. Sometimes they'd restart around 1 a.m., this time circling closer to the edge of the floor that bordered my bedroom. I told a friend about it over coffee one afternoon. She laughed nervously. "Maybe it's a ghost," she said, joking, but the humor didn't reach her eyes. I could tell she was unnerved by the idea. "It's not funny," I said. "I'm serious. The apartment above mine is empty. No one should be up there." She shrugged. "Then maybe you should call someone. A building inspector, or the landlord." I wanted to, but something inside me hesitated. It was like acknowledging it would make it real. That night, I stayed up, staring at the ceiling. Around 11:32, it started. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Pacing directly above me. I held my breath, gripping the sheets. The sound stopped suddenly, as if the person had realized I was listening. Then, faintly, I heard it scratching. A nail dragged along the wood, slow, deliberate, almost like someone was testing the floorboards for weak spots. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my flashlight and crept into the hallway, my heart hammering. I pressed my ear against the floor above, listening. Nothing. Silence. I walked to the stairwell, planning to go upstairs and confront whoever or whatever it was. But the doors were locked. no maintenance, no other tenants. The apartment was truly empty. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the building was older than I thought. Maybe there was a hidden maintenance access, a crawlspace I didn't know about. But the fear in my chest refused to be reasoned away. By the third week, the footsteps were accompanied by other sounds. Whispers, faint, almost imperceptible voices, low and distant. I'd hear them as I lay in bed, straining to understand. Sometimes they sounded like my name. Other times, unintelligible murmurs, like someone reciting numbers or counting quietly. I stopped inviting friends over. I stopped answering my phone at night. I started keeping my lights on, even when I slept. But no matter what I did, I couldn't escape the feeling of being watched. One night, around midnight, I decided I had to do something. I grabbed my phone and called the landlord. "Listen," I said, voice shaking. "Something is up there. I hear footsteps, whispers. I know the apartment's empty, but it's like someone's living there." There was a pause. "Emma," he said slowly. "Look, I know it sounds crazy, but the last tenant, they disappeared. Nobody knows what happened. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to scare you. The apartment has been vacant since maybe you're just hearing your imagination." I didn't sleep that night. Around 2 a.m., I heard the footsteps again, pacing faster than usual. Then the whispers, louder this time, like someone right on the other side of the ceiling. I couldn't take it. I grabbed a broom and, trembling, banged on the ceiling. "Hey, who's up there?" The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then, from directly above me, I heard a slow, deliberate dragging sound, like furniture being moved. My knees buckled. I pressed myself into the corner of the living room, holding the broom like a shield. Suddenly, a voice whispered clearly, unmistakably, right above me. "Finally, you heard me." I screamed. I ran to the door and tried the handle. Locked. I banged and kicked. My phone rang on the counter. I picked it up. No one on the line. Just heavy breathing. Then, the faintest sound of footsteps moving down a staircase. Above my head. No, not down it, was descending somewhere else. Somewhere inside the apartment. I ran to the window, threw it open, and climbed onto the small balcony. Below me, the street was empty. The city lights were distant and indifferent. I looked up at the floor above. Dark, silent, nothing. The next day, I moved out. I didn't care about my lease or losing my deposit. I packed everything in the car and never looked back. Months later, I heard from a friend who still lived in the building. "You won't believe it," she said. "They finally started renovating the apartment above yours. They said the previous tenant was never found, just gone. The place had things, strange things. They had to call in a crew to clear it. I never went back. And I never forgot the sound of those footsteps, pacing back and forth above me, night after night. Sometimes, late at night, I can still hear it. A soft tap, tap, tap. Not in my apartment anymore, but somewhere, just above my head. And I can't shake the feeling that one day, it might start again.